Welcome to fantasycalendar.com. This website is a tool for you to be able to create your own custom-made calendars for your tabletop games. I got started on this project a couple months ago after getting inspired by Donjon's fantasy calendar generator, but I craved something more and maybe something a bit different. And well, after a couple of months of hard work, here it is, the 0.1 beta for fantasycalendar.com. I'm still squashing occasional bugs, but the day-to-day usage is mostly stable. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create your own calendar. And for the purposes of this, I have already registered, but I have not yet logged in. But you don't need to do that in order to create a calendar. I'm going to show you what I mean with that right now. It just means that you can't save it straight away, as saving a calendar ties it to your account. So in order to save it, you do need to log in. However, any inputs you leave in the generator while you're logging in will propagate to the logged in version of this, so you don't lose any information that way. However, it does mean that if you navigate away from it, then you will lose your information. It's only really one way sort of thing. Now, I want to bring your attention to this presets over here. There's a couple of options here like Earth, Eberron, Golarion, Greyhawk, or Forgotten Realms. If you, for example, find yourself in Wave Echo Cave and you need to track the amount of time it takes you for you to get through it because Glassstaff kicked your ass. Or perhaps you are running a Shadowrun campaign on Earth and you want to use the Earth's campaign, or the Earth's calendar, my bad. At this point, you can actually just click on it and click apply, and it will generate the calendar for you from scratch with no issues with the current date and current time and everything set up for you. However, there is a caveat to this. You can also input your own custom data. This data can be taken from the Donjon generator itself. On the Donjon website, if I go to it right now, you can see that if I go to the fantasy calendar generator and go to the save restore section, you can see this string here. There's a weird string with a lot of information on it, contains the data needed to generate a calendar. You can simply copy this and paste this into the input. You can see that it goes green because it's valid, and you click apply, and it generates the very same calendar for you that you have on Donjon by yourself. But we want to create our own, so let's just clear this from information here. And I'm going to disable the clock for now, since that's going to be for later information. I'm going to input 10 months in a year and 30 days per month, and you can see that the calendar is updating, but it's looking a bit broken. That's because we haven't actually inputted the amount of days we have per week. I mean, if we want to, we can put 1 day, but then we'll just have a very weird calendar. But I prefer having something similar, like 7, like Earth. But you can see that the last 2 days of a month is just on its week of its own, which is not really what we want. We want to have it perhaps adjust according to what the previous month was. So we have this overflow months. What happens is that it basically uses the last week of the previous month and offsets the next month's start by using that. By this, it propagates across all months and even across years. If we increase the current year, you can see that it actually moves the first day of each year according to when it actually started. You can set this by yourself in the first day here, so you're not bound to anything. Now, we still need a moon. It's a bit boring to not have any moons in our world, so I'm just going to create a moon here. I'm going to call it Luna. Now, every day has a moon cycle, and you can see that they're all just blank, because we actually haven't inputted any information about how our moon is going to work. If I click here and go to moon cycle, it explains in the tooltip, as with most things here have a tooltip, but it's important to understand what it actually is. A moon cycle is how many days it takes for a moon to go from full moon to full moon again. Our moon, for example, takes 29.53 days to reach from full moon to a full moon. This way, it will change according to how many days it takes. And the shift is quite simple. It simply shifts it down or up the currently located area. So for example, if I have a full moon on the 10th, and I want to have it on the 12th instead, right? Type 2, it moves 2 days to the 12th. If I want to have, instead I want to have it on the 18th, well, what's the 10 minus 8? So that's 8, and bam, we have it on the 18th now instead. It's not quite as important as this is, but it's still quite a nice feature if you want to shift it around a tiny bit. Now, The names of the calendar doesn't matter as much right now since it's got a preset name right now. You can save it as it is, but if you want to be a bit more creative, you might want to input your own name for your calendar. So I'm just going to quickly input these here, and I'm going to go long rain, and I'm going to keep pasting these. Now you can see that the calendar actually updates in real time for this. So this is not something that you need to do as soon as you have your calendar set up, but you can actually do this after the fact. So if you change your mind about a name of a month that your players haven't reached yet, you can do that. Or if you, for example, have a preset, so you put the preset to Earth, and you want to maybe keep the same type of calendar that we have as on Earth, but you want to change the names around a bit, you can certainly do that. And for example, the moon day you can change as well, so you can have various weekday names and the amount of weekdays. I believe that Forgotten Realms have a 10-day week instead, and that's certainly doable. You just need to put that in and it will sort itself out. And this also updates all the other ones that are using this. Now, something important as well is that we don't really have a clock yet. This is quite easily to set up as well. You just tick this little box here and you will get this clock up here that's currently blank with a bit of a time arm. But the current time and the hours per day are all red. That's because it's all invalid. You need to start with the amount of hours per day that you have. I use 24-hour system, so you will think about the military way and not the civilian way that we currently have it in America, for example, or in the UK, or wherever else you have it. But yeah, so 24 hours per day. And everything is using the system as well, so the time is currently 8 o'clock here, 8 p.m. that is, half past, and currently we have that there. It's actually 29, so I can switch that real quick. It doesn't really matter with the minutes, it's just for if you have some sort of timer for exactly 30 minutes, you might want to have it shown, but it's not that important. The hour is what really matters. That's what's actually driving everything. Now, this summer solstice and winter solstice thing is quite important. As you can see, this line between night and day. What if, for example, you're higher up on Earth and you're closer to the polar circle, which means that the day will be longer and the night will also be longer during the summer and the winter solstice. I've tried to emulate this by being able to set that here. So, for example, in my world, summer solstice is in the middle of the year, which is Serenus, and I want to have the 12th or 11th of Serenus. The winter solstice is instead on Deep Snow, which will be then on the, let's say, the 14th. And the time is needed now. The time for the summer times. The summer times and the winter times are basically when the sun rises and sets at its highest or lowest point in the year. So if I type, for example, when you're high up in the Arctic Circle, the sun rises really early in the morning, or it doesn't actually fully rise, or it doesn't fully set, sorry, and you want to have maybe it sets 8 o'clock, and during the winter it instead, it goes up at 7 o'clock in the morning, which is closer to the winter time that we have now on Earth, unless you're below the equator. And then it might set down a bit earlier as well. So at 5 o'clock or 17 o'clock, you will basically have the sun go down. So when you increase the current day, you can see that it's getting closer to the winter solstice, and then when it reaches it, it starts going back towards summer solstice. This is quite useful as your campaign continues. You can change the current day, and the time dial will change and accommodate your current time zone or your current timestamp as well. So I'm just going to set the name here now, Suna, and now we're going to go into the player settings. It is an area of this calendar which basically will show you what the viewers will see and not what you will see. So if I click here on player settings, you can see that there's a couple more variables here that you can tick and play around with. I will start from the top, and we can start with show only current month. The current month is Winter's Wane. As of now, they can see every month of the entirety of the year, but we only want to show the current month. So clicking that will only generate the current month available to the players. So once you reach the end of the month and it ticks over, the players will see the next month available to them. But that doesn't really allow them to see anything that's happened in the past as what they know about. So clicking allow advancing view in calendar allows you to go back and forward in time, perhaps in the month or in the year. You can basically then go and see what happened in the past or in the future. But if you're a player, you might, or if you want to restrict the players, you might want to just tick this, allow only backwards view. You can allow only the players to see back in time, but not forward. So if they go back a month, they can only go forward to the month that's currently available to them. If they go back a year and forward in the months, then they need to be able to perhaps consider the fact that. Now, with the auto-generate solstice and equinox events. Events are something we're going to cover a bit later, but this auto-generates the winter solstice event here, as you can see here as well for the summer solstice. It also generates the equinox for the spring and the autumn equinox, which is when the time the length of the day is as long as the night. They're equally as long at that point, the middle point between the summer solstice and the winter solstice. Now, there was another one here as well called hide events from players. This does not take in consideration the winter solstice, but does take into consideration the events that you create. Now, events. They are quite a useful little thing. On each day when you're generating or editing the calendar, you can then click on this little plus button here. This plus button opens up this little dialog where you can put in the name of the event. This is an event, we'll call it, or event name. Very descriptive. Now, there's a couple more things. You can write a description up to, I think, 1,000 words in total, more than enough, I believe. And you can also select how often it repeats. If you want to have, for example, a daily event for a certain amount of time, or you want to have annually on a specific weekday in this specific month, or maybe monthly on the 2nd of this weekday, or annually on this specific date. Because keep in mind, when you tick overflow months, the weekday of some events might shift around. And the same thing goes for monthly or fortnightly even, or weekly, but we're gonna stick with daily for now. Now we can choose to hide this from the players and just make it disappear from the view part, but we're gonna keep it visible for now. We can also select how long this event will run. So for example, I want to have it run from the Winter's Wane from the current dates, which is 8, to perhaps the 16th. And now when I click save, you can see that it pops up from the 8th to the 16th. And I can click on this anytime to edit what it actually does. Now, for the hiding events from players, you can see that any event that's currently on the calendar when I tick this disappears from the players. But if I want to hide just one event, I can scroll down and click this, hide from players, and disappears. So that way you can hide some events. Maybe an upcoming apocalypse could be useful to hide from your players in case you don't want them to subverting it. That could be quite useful. Now, there's also, for example, hide moons from the players. If you're being a bit mean and you have a werewolf in your party, you don't want to reveal when the moon is gonna be, a full moon or whatever. You can hide them from them, and it promptly disappears from light. Naturally, the clock is also visible to the players, and if you want to be able to hide that, or if they're on a place where they're not sure how the time works, you can simply just hide it, and only you will see it when you're editing it or when you're actually viewing it. Now, we're ready to log in and save this, so I'm just gonna log in with my username and password, and sure enough, the calendar is still here, still the same, still with the same events and everything. And now when I save it, it takes us to the viewing part of the calendar. This is a live updating viewport into it, so to say. So if I just simply create a incognito tab here, so I can show you that it actually updates in real time. So if I click on current day plus, and sure enough, it goes forward on this part of the calendar that hasn't logged in. Your players are able to see it update in real time. Though I'm not doing this too often, as it is not that important to advance the day very fast. So it could take up to 10 seconds before it actually updates properly to show and reflect the changes that the owner has actually made, as you can see there. But it does update in real time, which is quite useful for calendars that are constantly being updated. If you, for example, share one with multiple people in a campaign that has multiple DMs, if you want to run it that way. But yeah, I think I've pretty much covered all of them. You can also always go back and edit it and save it, and perhaps even delete it if you get tired of it. And if you go to your homepage, you can see that it is there. And anytime you want, you can go and edit it and update it as you wish. And that, my friends, is Fantasy Calendar. I'll see you online.